welcome or welcome back if you've seen the AuthorTube newbie tag video. It is about 8 a.m. here in Austin, and I just woke up pretty early, said goodbye to my husband as he was leaving for work, and I got myself a cup of coffee right here in this little mug. I really like it. One of my coworkers gave it to me when I was working in crisis mental health, and it says chaos coordinator. But just gonna have my coffee and then drink some water, and after that I'm gonna go put away laundry. So I've had clean laundry that's been piling up for a while, so I need to put it all back. And while I do that, I'm gonna listen to an audiobook that I'm listening to for another one of the videos that I'm gonna make. And if you want a little hint on the video, the book is Hoot by Carl Hiaasen, and I'm actually re-listening to it because it was a book that I really loved when I was a little kid. I really loved a lot of things about it, so I'm trying to see if it holds up to my memory of it right now. And then after I put away my laundry, I'm gonna start on the critiques that I have. So today I have 3 critiques for different members of my writing group that I need to get done by 6 p.m. today. The selections are 5,000 words each, and I want to read them at least twice each. So that's 30,000 words of reading that I have volunteered myself to do, but we're gonna get it done. And I'm gonna talk to you a little bit later about my kind of philosophy. I don't particularly have a method or subscribe to a single method of critique, but I do kind of have a philosophy behind it. And I'm gonna talk about that, I think, after I get everything printed. All right, see you soon. Do you have a printer? Do you have a wireless printer? Will it not connect if it's more than 5 feet from the modem? Does it struggle to connect to Bluetooth? Does it lose files that you have saved repeatedly? Does it randomly disconnect from every device that you've connected it to? Are you tired of hearing people tell you to turn it off and on again? Well, know that you are not alone. Here is a video of me trying to print 30,000 words of documents from my wireless printer. I've got my 3 critiques for writing group tonight finally printed. I'm really excited about them. My group is open genre, so even though I write literary fiction and kind of stuffier fantasy mostly, the participants in the group write all kinds of genres, and I think that's illustrated in the sample that we've got. for this week. And I just love like being able to read all kinds of genres. I think it really helps me understand writing as a whole, and just like writing as a craft. Because you get to see it from like all angles, trying to do all kinds of things. So the first sample that I've got for this week is kind of a cyberpunk, like hard fantasy, like very like Asimov inspired, but people have like cybernetic implants and stuff. And I've read, I think, 3 prior installations of this project. So I read like parts 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 5 and 6, and then this is part 8 and 9. So I've been able to kind of like follow along the novel. And it's one where it's not necessarily this person's first draft. They've written a project that's similar to it before, and they're kind of like rewriting it to be more coherent and like restructuring it. So it has like certain needs, and then this one is a fantasy project. It's like adult portal fantasy, which I think is really fun as a genre. And then just from like reading the title of this section, which is Nothing Comes from Heaven Without Purpose, I think that it might be like moving into kind of like Narnia-esque like Christian fiction or Christian fantasy, which I think is really fun. I haven't read much like C.S. Lewis, but I feel like there's a big kind of like tradition in the fantasy genre of like incorporating like religion and religious beliefs. So it'll be interesting to see how that's done. And it's also kind of like an earlier stage project, I think. One that's been, I think the author has been working on for a while, but she's still like putting it together on like a structural level. And then the last one is, I'm not sure of the genre. Oh, and then the one that I just talked about, I've also read parts of it before. I think I've read 2 parts of it before. This one, I'm not sure if I've read parts of it before. But this person usually writes like kind of like noir stories, or like kind of like retro erotica type stories with like cryptids and like horror elements. So I imagine that this would be somewhat like that. Yeah, and I'm excited for this one because it is like a genre I'm like trying to read more, but like haven't been reading much more of. And I think this person is actually employed as an editor. So you're looking for like different things. He's not going to make kind of like traditional mistakes, but then there are other things that you can notice that can be like built on. So I'm really excited to read that. And my philosophy for critiquing is a mix of like the Milford method, the critical response method, and a few things I learned from like the Brandon Sanderson like writing lectures on YouTube that I just like to incorporate. So the Milford method is like the biggest or like most structured method of critique that I know of, and I can do a whole video like on these methods if you guys want. It's the one that's supposed to be used for the group, but we usually don't adhere to it because it is so structured. In this method, like if you're following a format talking about what works and what doesn't work in the story, and when you're giving your critique, the author you're talking about like cannot respond and cannot speak, or is not supposed to. So it can cut down on like combativeness within a group, but sometimes it's not really good for like discussion, if you can benefit from discussion. Oh, and I think it's really good for like polishing up like a final draft if you're working on the Milford method. Like you want a project that's like in its latter stages. Liz Lerman, who does the critical response method, I think has made a method that is like really cooperative and wonderful and facilitates discussion. It's about kind of like picking out like what you liked and what's working, and then like asking questions not of the author but of the work. And I actually learned it in a playwriting class that I took. So it's the one that I'm most familiar with. One writing group, which I'm actually gonna have tomorrow, not the one today, we actually do use like the structured critical response method to critique books. And then from the Brandon Sanderson lectures, they're not about like critiquing at all, but Brandon Sanderson I think has a really good idea of like how to craft a book. And then part of it is the Brandon Sanderson lecture that was a guest lecturer called Mary Robinette. But Brandon Sanderson focuses on what his books are like promising and what they're delivering on. And that's something that I really look for when I'm critiquing, is like, what is the book promising? What is it delivering on? Another thing that I look at is the mice quotient, which is a really long thing that I can like link below. Is like Mary Robinette talking about the mice quotient in short stories. And that's like kind of talking about promises and delivery as well, but saying that like in order to deliver on a character or a plot or a question that you're asking, you have to have a certain amount of words. So if your story is like 5,000 words long and you're asking like, you know, like epic story length questions, you're not going to answer the question in a meaningful way. And then what I look for from the Milford method is just like what's working and not working, and trying to separate different categories of things. So how are the characters working? How are they not working? How is the plot working? How is it not working? And then from Liz Lerman, I want to make sure that I'm asking questions to the work, that I'm curious about it and that I'm invested in it, rather than just like being there to critique or to pick out what's wrong. I want to be a partner in like physically building this project. That said, I do not do like line edits or like copy edits, so I don't like pick out words or like correct spelling in like most of the work that I'm critiquing, because most of it is an early draft and the wording of things is not like set. People don't know exactly where they're going or precisely where they're going when they're writing the stuff I'm critiquing. So I don't think there's a whole lot of use in like, you know, being like, this is a usage error, you should like do it differently. But there is a use in being like, hey, I think you have an opportunity to have a subplot here. Is that something you want? I can help you construct it. So that's more what I try to do. I'm gonna go pick out a record. And after that, I'll get started with my critiques. Oh, also, last thing. I use green when I'm editing, so I use the green highlighter to pick out lines I like, and then green fine tip friction pen to underline things that I think need improvement, or to give information on what I think could be improved. Yeah, because I think when I was in high school, one of my teachers said there was a study, and like she used green pen because the study said that like students who got critique in like a red pen thought that they were being yelled at or had the same emotional response as like being yelled at. So I've just always done critique in green pen. But anyway, let's get to it. I did my first read of the first story, which I really loved. It was like a little horror story. It was only about 1,500 words, which is amazing, but it had a lot of like literary aspects, which really gave it some appeal to me, and a lot of like beautiful, beautiful imagery. Like, I don't want to say too much about it because I'm sure that the author would like to publish it. But it did have a part where the devil had a stand at the farmer's market, which I adored. So I wrote some questions down that I have. And I also have like recommendations for like comps that I put in the critiques that I give. So this story like had the kind of like creepy Americana that I think of in like Wyeth paintings. So I talked about that. And then it also kind of reminded me of Proving Up by Karen Russell. So I talked about that a little bit in my critique. And then I kind of suggested connecting more elements. There's a parent's divorce that's involved that I think parallels another situation. And I asked if that was the case, and if so, asked if like the writer would want to clarify it more. And I just like underlined some like clunky lines and then highlighted lines I thought like really, really worked, and I highlighted so much. It was beautiful. So I'm going to move on to the second for now. group tonight. It was like a portal fantasy. It's very cozy. It involves like elves who are trying to get like things together, like cattle, to learn how to make cheese, basically. And it's very sweet. So for that one, I talked a lot about like, I don't think anything is like wrong with the story or anything that is there is not working. I think that some things are kind of like, it would be beneficial to add some things. So I talked about adding like tactile details and like colors, like there are horses in it and like cattle are a big part of it. And like their colors are kind of like mentioned at the beginning. But in later chapters, like kind of like the visual and tactile details about them aren't mentioned again. So I just talked about like running those through a little bit more. Because like if there's like a horsey or like a cow in a story, we kind of want to know what it's like to like touch it. And then, what else did I talk about? Oh, I talked about there was like a moment of tension, like a pulse of tension that I thought was really lovely and like contrasted really well with the rest of the plot. Oh yeah, and then I had a question for the work about the chapter names, because I think sometimes the chapter names make me think that the story is different from what it will be. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out the theme of this story, so I wonder if I can kind of like unlock the mystery of the chapter names. That'll help me like understand the theme a little bit more, and I can help the writer better. So I had a question about that for the writer. So I'm gonna go ahead and start on my third and last selection for writing group tonight, and it is gonna be the like cyberpunk / hard sci-fi selection that I read last. Alright, I finally finished going through the pages and writing up all 3 critiques. It is 4:14 in the afternoon, and I've been working since around 11:30, so took quite a bit of time on that, quite a bit of my day, but it's something that I really love to do. I really love to get invested in people's work. For the third project, it was that sci-fi project, and it's sci-fi with kind of like a fake dating B-plot, and the sci-fi is working really well, and I think the fake dating B-plot is hard to do well. I think it's hard to make like a fake dating romance that like the future of planets depends on not seem kind of cringe, or like a little bit cheesy. So I just offered some recommendations on that, and ways to kind of make that relationship like more restrained, that obviously like the writer can take or not take. It is his book and not mine. And then the portion that he's working on right now is like in the Save the Cat method, the fun and games bit. So I was just asking him to kind of reflect on his premise, because this is the part where we're supposed to get the promise of the premise if you're like coming from the Save the Cat perspective. So yeah, just thinking about what he means for the premise to be, and is it delivering at that point. And I think I'll have my writing group in about 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I'll get to share all of the feedback, which I'm really excited to do. I'm really excited to see those folks. I would so recommend joining a writing group if you can. If you can't, there are some amazing like online writing groups that I've heard about. I know a podcast that I listen to called The Shit No One Tells You About Writing, has like a lot of writing groups that it does. You can join and they'll place you in a group. You can also join classes and stuff. That's how I got one of my writing groups. The one I'm gonna have tomorrow is people from a playwriting class. So anyway, I would recommend a writing group. If y'all have had different experiences, like please let me know down below. And hopefully I can talk to y'all about mine and like invite people from my writing group onto the channel sometimes. But y'all take care, drink water, listen to some bluegrass. I'll see you soon.